Hustle TV, producer series.
Hey everyone, this is Latour here. I'm here today with the good guys over at House of Hustle. They've asked me to break down my track In the Party, which came out on That's What EP, which is a 2-track EP on House of Hustle last month. Let's go. So firstly, I'm going to play the whole track, just give you an idea of how it sounds if you haven't heard of it.
And I was just like, I fuck with this. So then, I played it. And then my friend was like, you need to finish that shit. I put it on Instagram before it was even finished. And I just posted it on Instagram to see if they was gonna fuck with it. And they fucked with it. So I finished it. And I was just like, in the party. 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 And I was just like, 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 I fuck with this. So then, I played it. And then my friend was like, you need to finish that shit. I put it on Instagram before it was even finished. And I just posted it on Instagram to see if they was gonna fuck with it. And they fucked with it. So I finished it.
Cool, so that gives you a bit of an idea of how the track sounds. So let's break it down one by one, piece by piece. So first and foremost, we have the kick at the top here. I always try to label or rearrange, my stuff in the same kind of way. So I have the kick and the bass at the top, then go into my drums, and then into the kind of the synths down the bottom here, following with the vocals, and then effects and kind of last. That's just how I like to arrange stuff. It keeps it really neat and clean for me when I'm doing so. So originally this track's at 129 BPM. So firstly, simply we just have a kick here. There's a ghost kick on top of this, which is just triggering the side chain for all the bass mainly and the toms. So the kick's pretty simple, nothing too crazy. So I processed the kick prior to this and then I bounced it down into audio. So unfortunately I can't see exactly what I've done here, but I do know I used some saturation on there. I beefed up a bit. I added a little bit of white noise to the top of it to make the top stand out because there wasn't much going on with the bass in the more higher end. This is why I decided to do that. So the bass line on this one, there is really no bass, which is the first time I've ever made a track without a bass line. So what I wanted to do, I've always wanted to use a tom as a bass line. I know it's been done by a lot of people before, and I've just never really wrote a track with it. So this time I opted to use a 909 tom for the bass line, which contains all of the low information comes from this tom. So let's listen to that by itself. So the 909 tom is typically known to be quite low end heavy, hence why I use it. The 808s and the 909s very low end. So firstly on this, I have a low cut here, taking away everything under 30 hertz, just a frequency that's not necessary. And then, so I really needed to beef up this low end. It really needed a good pushing. So firstly, we have Brainworks sub filter. So that's pushing up everything at 65 hertz, just giving it a boost in that low end. If we turn this off and then on. So that's doing quite a fair bit there. Following that, we have Waves CLA 3A, an iconic compressor, really good for just lifting some volume, bringing it out even further. So that's bringing it up a lot as well. Following that, I needed more low end. Like I said, I really need to push this one a lot. This is a lot of processing. So following this, we have the Waves R bass, only a little bit here, around 80 hertz. That then is going into a Pultec EQ, which is pushing 60 hertz up at 4, and the attenuation knob is at 3 there. So what that's doing is it's dipping some of the higher frequencies and it's boosting up at the lower. So that's the Pultec EQ. What it's known for is that method. So it creates a nice little curve, kind of just gets rid of the frequencies that are kind of clashing with each other. So that one off. And then on. So that one you're only going to really hear through headphones or really good speakers. Following that, we have Ableton's Erosion, which is adding a little bit of top sizzle. So it's adding a sine up at 5,000, 5.4K hertz, just a little bit there. So that's just going to help it stand out on, car speakers, iPhone speakers, little AirPods, things like that. Following that, we have FabFilter EQ, rolling off everything under 35 again. Some of these plugins tend to add some low end, so this is just bringing that back in, and then rolling off everything over 10K, just wasn't necessary. And then we simply have a utility, which is adding it into mono, and then I have Nicky Ramirez kickstart after that on down the end here. So that's just side chaining, getting it out the way of the bass line. So that's coming last in the chain there. Just to make sure nothing is fucking with that side chain, really. So that's a kick in the bass. They're both then grouped into a group together. And then on that group, I've added Brainworks Digital V3, which has a slight bass shift at 0.5. So essentially that's kind of following your Pultec EQ curve there. It's a similar type of curve. So it's dipping a little bit around the 200 to 250 and it's boosting up around the 50 to 60 hertz. Then we have a compressor here. This is simply just, I used to use this a lot for the, just as a volume automation. So that's not doing anything. It's not compressing the thresholds right at the top. It's just simply bringing it down by 10 dB. So I can have my channels here on the right, pretty much set to 0 being the top. And then I bring them down all by 10 when I finish. So then it's not clipping, going into the master and leaving room for the mastering engineer when he ends up taking over. So that's the kicking the bass done. Following that, we go into the drums. So there's quite a few drum layers here. So we have toms, snares, claps, hi-hat, more hi-hats, a rim shot, a shaker, some fills, some snare rolls, 909 crash here, reverse, shakers, snares, nothing that complicated, just adding lots of layers. There's a ride that comes in towards the last part of the drop on each side. just to continue that movement, keep it going. There's a little ride stab that I added in as well. So that's all the drums there, just a mixture of samples, loops. There's another shaker that comes in this on the second drop here. So each of these has their own slight processing going on. And a lot of these are actually, if you can see here, are feeding then into this channel, which is got the Supercharger GT from Native Instruments on there. So that's just got a drum bus setting. So they're all, a lot of these that I wanted to stand out, not all of them, but most of them are then going to this channel. And then that channel still goes into the drums group. So the drums group has processing on the end of it. We have an Oxford inflator pushing everything up. So just a slide effect there at 19%. That goes into the Devil Lock by Sound Toys, and then into the J37 tape emulation from Waves. So tape saturator there. And once again, I'm just bringing it down by 9 with the compressor and the volume setting. So each of these drums has a little bit of processing. I won't go into it too deeply because it does take a lot of time, but you can kind of just see, once again, side chaining on the snare here with some EQing, rolling off everything under 250, a little dip up there around 8K. The clap, so I got this one, it's pretty cool. I have the SPL Transient Designer on here. So that's just bringing down the sustain to make that clap really nice and punchy. And then the attack is up as well. So that's going to help push the initial hit of that clap to make it really stand out, then bring how long the clap is going for, because it looks like maybe it was a loop. That's then rolling into the Sound Toys Decapitator, which is saturating it, kind of crushing it as well. So that will be bringing it out a lot. If I take this off and then on, I actually can't hear it that much there. So the dry wet knob's down a fair bit. Then just EQing, and then once again into the Fab Filter EQ, rolling off any resonance that I thought were a bit harsh on the ears up around these ends. So then we go into the hat group. So we have the Apex Vintage Exciter here, just really crunching it off and on. Once again, we have the SPL Transient Designer bringing down some sustain there. So this next plugin is a really cool one. It's Soothe. So this is a harsh hi-hat just setting. And what this does is it's dipping out. It's an artificial AI intelligent program that takes away any harsh resonances that it's just going to just really hurt your ears on those big systems. It's one of those things when you don't realize until you're hearing it and your ears are getting fatigued and you don't know why. And you don't know why maybe this track's sounding very like harsh. So all these little things help when you're on those bigger systems. So you can see here, just dipping around 3 dB. Following that, there were some more resonances I didn't like in there as well. We have a low cut at 300 Hertz, just removing there 3 dB. Nothing too crazy there. Hats, more faster hats on 16s, some auto pan going on there just to bounce it around, keep it interesting. We have a rim shot. Removing all those lows under 300 is not necessary. Keeps clean for your kick in the bass. Essentially, all you want down around the 100, 150, 200-ish under. You just want your kick and bass there. You don't really want too much more going on there. It's just going to make it messy. So then we have a shaker, removing everything under 1K, sorry. So I won't go into too much detail there. This shaker here, once again, we have a Pan Man from Sound Toys, an amazing company, one of my favorites. Sound Toys stuff is amazing. So that's just pushing it around, a little bit different to your auto pan with inside Ableton. Some of the more rhythmic stuff you can get in here is really cool. So it's a rhythmic automatic panner from Panman. So that's on a quarter note and it's set to the tempo of the track, which is 129. So you can hear it just slightly moving around. It keeps it very interesting. All these little things help build up to the end. So crash here. We have a 909 crash with some delay from Echo Boy. Nothing that crazy. Quarter note, 50% dry wet, tempo set, analog delay style on the here. So you have all these different settings you can go in here. It's really cool. I advise you to play around with different ones in there. Kind of concludes it for the drums. There's not much else going on here. Just little fills, little snare rolls, all adding to the groove, all adding to the rhythm. That one's panned 25% to the right ear just to keep everything out of the way of each other, keep it more exciting. So moving on to some of the more musical instruments. So it looks like I've bounced this out. I would say this would have come from the Roland Cloud 303 because that's what I usually use my 303s. So unfortunately, I've bounced that down to audio, so we can't see the initial 303 patch there or what I played in. But the Roland Cloud stuff sometimes can be a little bit CPU intensive, and there's quite a lot of stuff going on in this track. So I bounced this down to audio, but we can still see all the processing. So I would have bounced this down with no processing on it. So first we have the Waves CLA 76, another iconic compressor there. This will be bringing a lot of volume. So off. So that's just saturating a bit, compressing it a bit, adding volume. Following that, we have Ableton's Overdrive, which is adding a little bit of crunch and distortion to that high end. So that's really pushing it out there. It's adding a nice lot of crunch to the top. Following that, we have Kickstart, Nicky Romero once again, which is just side chaining, making sure it's out of the way. It's also giving it a bit more of a rhythmic feel. A lot of this is high-end stuff, but it just adds to the rhythm and keeps the bounce of the track going. So an EQ here, rolling off everything under 200 Hertz, dipping a bit here. I didn't like the resonance going on there. Up at 300. So the Echo Boy, let's see when that comes in. So the Echo Boy is only on the very end here. Sound Toys, adding some delay. Going into the breakdown. Just to bridge those two sections together a little bit. Quarter note delay there. Following that, we have some saturation from Softtube. Really cool plugin, this one. It is free, so I advise you guys to check that out. Following that, I needed some more volume. I got that from the Waves L2 limiter. Simply adding a little bit of volume. Following that, another Ableton compressor, once again, bring it down by that 10, as I mentioned, and also, again, soothe. There were some harsh frequencies I didn't like in there. You got to know it was soothe. Mix it 100%. 2 dB, 3 dB, just bringing it out a little bit. Anything that was harsh on the ear. Let's move that up here for a second. Moving on to the main lead. Comes in, this lead only comes in the first breakdown and then the middle breakdown. So as you guys can see at the top here, I use these markers to really know where I'm at all times. So we have our intro marker. This will be the first little break, first drop, main break, second drop, outro. And they're all following 32 bars, 32 bars, 32 bars. for this track. That doesn't have to be the same with everything. So the lead, unfortunately, once again, it looks like I have bounced this down to audio. I can't remember what synthesizer this came from. It would have been one inside the box. Unfortunately, I made this record last year, so I can't remember what it was in. So firstly, we have some side chain going on for Mickey Ramirez kickstart, 50%. Following that, a little bit of EQ. Then we go into Valhalla Vintage Verb, a reverb plugin. Take that off. Very dry. Mix at 17%, just adding a little bit of ambience to this track. Following that, we have the Supercharger GT, Native Instruments again, the saturation at 4 and the character at 2 on the fat setting. Another EQ, removing anything that these plugins, the reverb might have added. So this Sonolacus plugin, unfortunately, is not working. I can't show you guys. I'm not sure why this is not working. It's just a filter plugin, but for some reason, it's not working today. Following that, we have Fab Filter Pro Q3 again. Removing some resonances that weren't to liking. Food 2 once again. Just a slight dip. And then we have Auto Pan. Just pushing it around a little bit. Makes it interesting. Following that, we have a simple string, which is coming out of the Korg M1. Just the one note there. String ensemble. With some EQ rolling off any lows. We have the soft tube saturation slightly, volume automation, and then we have a width automation as well. So as this string slowly comes in, the width gets bigger, pushing it from mono out to stereo. It really creates a cool effect when building up to something like a drop, something that a lot of people wouldn't really necessarily hear when they're listening to the record, except for on headphones, but it gets wider and wider. So then when it goes to the drop and then comes all back in again. Following that, a little bit of auto pan on a rate of 16 at 19%, just to keep it interesting. So let's move into the vocals now. So the vocals were just little chops.
And I was party. And I was just in the 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 party. And I was.
So all these vocals go into one group here. On this group, we have the CLA from Waves, the vocals.
And I was party. And I was just in the party. And I was just in the party.
This is just on a female
and I was just in the party.
Rock and roll singer
setting. And I was
setting.
just in the party. And I was just in the party.
There's some Waves EQ,
and I was just
some Ableton EQ
and
here, rolling off everything under 130.
And I was just in the party. And I was
Santos
just
Decapitator.
And I was just in the party.
Adding
and
some slight
just
drive, presence, really pushing it out of the mix. We have a de-esser from Ableton following that. Just rolling off any of those harsh S sounds that may be in the vocal. Following that, we have the Waves L2 again, just bringing some volume, some limiting there.
And I was party. And I was just in the party.
So and it's not hitting it all
and
over
I was
there.
Party. And I was
simply just adding some volume. There were some more S's that I didn't like, so then I pushed it through the Fab Filter Pro DS, which is just another de-esser.
And I was party. And I was just in the party.
You can see slightly.
And I was
here.
just in the party. And I was 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 just in the party.
Another
and I
EQ.
was just in the party. And
getting rid of everything over 18K and everything under 150.
And I was party. And I was just in the party. And I was just in the party.
Going into the breakdown is when the vocal starts to really pick up and get crazy. The way I obtained this was through Waves H Delay. So it's a really cool plugin, H Delay. You can modulate and pitch and move stuff around. So the feedback here is the main thing that really moves. and it's just going crazy.
In the party, 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 in the party.
And I was just like,
So the feedback is pushing into itself, which is creating a lot of those rhythms. The modulation feedback setting this was, and then I just automated the feedback there. Following that, we have soothe once again, removing anything. So because I was pushing the H delay so much,
and
I was getting a lot of feedback into each other that was really quite crazy and building up. So I had to smash soothe on top of that. It really pushed away anything that was annoying me there. Just to make it clean, right with Evoke, when the drop comes in for the second, we have auto filter from Ableton, bringing everything down, perfect for the drop.
In the party. In the party.
and I
So H delay turns off for the drop there, making it clean, leading in. Other than that, it's just a few different vocal takes here.
And I was just like, I fuck with this. So then, like, I played it. And then my friend was like, you need to finish that shit. I put it on Instagram before it was even finished.
Some reverses. Following that, we just have some effects. And then going into the last part is the little rave, which happens right before the drop. I think this was just a sample I found online. I've cut it and bounced it down, so unfortunately we can't see it. But you can kind of see a little bit of the processing I've done on it here. So that's just an old school sample, a classic rave sound that just has a little bit of delay, which actually turns off right after. So that when the drop hits, it's all very clean. I didn't want any of that following through into the drop. There's also a sound shifter from Waves plug in here. I'm not sure what this is doing. Let's have a look. So that's just pushing the delay up an octave. So if I bring this up, you'll really hear what's going on here, because I didn't want the delay to be on the same octave. I wanted it just a little bit different. So it's only affecting, that's why it's in this chain here. So it's only affecting the delay. That's down pretty low at minus 30 dB. It's just adding a little bit of something different. So altogether, that's how I made In the Party, which is out now on House of Hustle. Hope you enjoyed.